Look out, ladies and sensation seekers. A very bad man is coming your way.
Split Tube Media and the Cinesthesia
podcast present a special daily October podcast.
Help.
To the king.
They call me Dr. Manhattan since a Dr. Man shat in my chest. No, I'm the blue. I'm the best. My DNA is blessed. I'm seeing past this mess, my eyes in the skies. There should be more, but that's as far as I got. Yeah, and I wanted to at least come up with 2 more lines so I'd use it, but I was too slow.
My first note is, where's my dead baby?
I have a question for you, Jason.
What's your question, Jim?
It's, why do all the weird ones have to fly at night?
Red as a fire engine inside, black as a woodchuck's asshole outside. That's me.
That's you.
Oh, man, Jim, we're getting so close.
Emotionally to each other?
We're getting we're just going to turn the lights down a little bit.
Yeah, please.
Put some mood music on.
All right.
I'm gonna fly all night.
Yeah, let's never stop flying.
This is big 25 coming at you.
That's we can rent a car now as a podcast.
the dark side of October.
Yeah.
Hi everybody. Welcome back to Hell to the King. All right. We are entering the For Real Times home stretch. This is episode 25, and we are talking about The Night Flier.
The Night Flier.
Jim, had you ever in your life heard of this movie before we started doing this project?
No. You put it on a list of movies I had to watch, and I said, huh.
That is approximately what I did to myself.
Yeah.
I thought for a while it was a TV movie. It is not.
Yeah, this is one of, 6 in this last brief run that I assumed was going to be television and wasn't. There's just a lot. I feel like maybe so many of them have been miniseries. Mm-hmm. And just all the low-profile ones, I think, seem like they're going to be.
Well,
or
this movie
it's
also
going to be the Langoliers.
Exactly. Yeah. This is another one where I thought it was sort of a TV movie. There are reasons to think it's a TV movie, and one could mount an argument that it technically is, sort of.
Really? How?
Well, so, The Night Flier is the story of the legend Miguel Ferrer.
Yeah. Oh, man. This harkens back to what you were saying about Ted Levine, where he's a dude. Miguel Ferrer, likewise, is a dude that pops up in things once in a while. And every time he pops up, you're like, I am in love with this man. I watched RoboCop once, where he's a relatively minor character. And I was like, that dude is the best. And then didn't see him forever. And then he pops up, a little bit in Twin Peaks. And occasionally in other things, and he's never the hero, and in this movie he is the main dude, and I was so stoked.
Yeah.
And he lives up to it. He rampages.
Absolutely in the vein of Ted Levine getting the star turn he deserved in The Mangler. This is Miguel Ferrer getting absolutely the central role that he should have had a dozen times over. He's in many other things.
Jason, he has, I think, a lot of the physical characteristics, I think, of a Vin Diesel. He's not as enormous, obviously, but I think beyond that, they have a lot of physical and auditory similarities. But Miguel Ferrer can act. And I feel like he should have had the career. There should have been XXX movies starring Miguel Ferrer. Not pornos, XXX, the Vin Diesel movies.
Yeah, I mean, I would have taken any of that, but still, yeah. No, I agree. He is another one of those guys who had a great career.
Yeah, yes.
Had a always worked because everybody always wanted,
of course,
to have him in stuff, but didn't cross over into that level of stardom that he so obviously deserved.
Agreed.
So this is the Miguel Ferrer fan hour.
Yes.
We'll be taking you through all things Miguel.
I did actually. Can we really briefly? I Wikipedia'd Miguel Ferrer because I was like, surely there are other movies that he starred in that I should watch, because this is the first time I've seen him really be in charge of a movie. And he doesn't, sometimes sometimes Ludacris gets famous doing verses on songs, and then when you listen to his solo album, you're like, oh, I wish he was doing verses on songs. So I always have that fear, but with Miguel Ferrer in this movie, he just rampages the whole time. And so I was like, I need to find other of his films that he stars in. But I did, when I looked him up, I saw that, he's been acting in things on and off forever. RoboCop is his breakout role, that's a fact. But he also, Jason, plays the drums on Keith Moon's solo album. Yeah, and has written graphic novels for Marvel.
That surprises me less, just because there's so much overlap between certainly, especially in the 90s, there was a lot of overlap between the comic book writer crowd and the Twin Peaks fan crowd.
Yes, but usually it's not actors who you see writing comic books. True. As far as I'm aware,
that is true.
Anyway, I was just delated by those facts that he has professionally worked as a comic book writer and a drummer, in addition to being a powerful actor.
Yes, it is wonderful.
That's our fan hour.
Oh my God. He's the narrator for the It's All True documentary. The one that, do you remember Orson Welles, after he made Magnificent Ambersons, or while Magnificent Ambersons was still being cut, went down to Latin America to make a documentary.
Okay.
Called It's All True, and that's why he was out of the country when the studio was like, we're going to change everything and burn your footage.
Okay.
And, turn you into a fall guy for all of this. And he was like, well, I'm off doing my thing, so I guess I can't do anything about that. And then that film that was going to be called It's All True never materialized. Okay. And, he went on to, the rest is Orson Welles' history. But some years back, somebody took all the footage that he had and all the notes and made a sort of finishing his documentary and also sort of documentary on the documentary he was making. But anyway, the only thing I'm seeing is that Miguel Ferrer apparently narrates that.
It's delightful.
New documentary, so I will have to watch that. I would have anyway, but now even sooner.
Jason, so this movie starts with a random murder, as horror movies often do, and then cuts to the offices of a tabloid newspaper, where the camera sort of swings around a hallway, and Miguel Ferrer stomps into frame, and is just immediately fuming, and runs up to a man and is furious that he has cut a picture of a dead baby out of the magazine.
Well, but we're not even actually sure that that's what it is yet. He just says, "Where's my dead baby?"
Yeah.
And then he says, "Just because you don't have any balls doesn't mean you have to cut mine off."
It's so good.
He's the angry... Yeah, I'm... One of the things, the side notes from this series that I have is eventually, when we recover from this, I would like to do a podcast series with you called 12 Angry Men.
Okay. Where we just look at movies starring angry men.
Yes.
Yeah.
We watch performances by the angriest men in cinema. And so far we have Ed Harris, Miguel Ferrer, Ted Levine.
Oh, yeah.
And then other people be brought in like Gene Hackman.
Yes.
And, we'll Samuel
I don't know if this is too much of a sidestep, but I would also put an Odenkirk in there.
Sure.
Yeah.
No, well...
Because he's comedy mad, but he's still real mad.
We're going to have to explore what the contours of being an angry man is.
Yeah.
And maybe we don't even have to be real sexist about it. We can open it up to some angry ladies.
Yeah, for sure.
Because there's some good ones out there.
Yeah.
So this movie, as I started to say, is the story... 12 minutes ago, is the story of Miguel Ferrer as a tabloid newspaper photographer.
Yes, and
like
writer.
super and reporter, super seedy tabloid reporter who goes on the trail of what he comes to call the Night Flier.
Saw you had a night flyer last night. This him? So I said, saw you had a night flyer. Night flyer.
Night Flier.
Night Flier.
Yeah.
Which is a mysterious figure who flies a tiny private plane,
like a Cessna
around, like a Cessna, around to different airfields.
Yeah, local small airfields.
Yeah, local small airfields, and lands, refuels, stays sometimes for a couple of days, and horribly murders someone.
Yeah,
and then flies off with no consequence, and nobody seems to be able to do anything about this or pursue it, or even in some cases seem to understand that there is even anything happening. It's all very, very mysterious. So
it seems like his MO is he flies into a small airport at night, befriends somebody, sleeps presumably during the day, and then the next night brutally murders the person he befriended, and then leaves.
It's not entirely clear that that's how it goes, but it does seem like he either befriends somebody or somehow manipulates them.
Sure.
The Night Flier, very early on in the film, is sort of tagged as vampire presenting.
Yeah. Yes.
As in, this is a person who flies around in a plane with blacked out windows, and when he gets out, is wearing a giant, like, theatrical black
funny
cape.
cloak. Yeah. And he goes by Dwight Renfield, which...
Yeah.
Because Renfield, obviously, but then Dwight is the name of the guy who played Renfield. But what a terrible name, Jason.
It's a terrible name. And they also underlined it in the dialogue.
Yes.
Dwight! Oh my god. Spoiler alert, I thought this movie was pretty great.
Yeah. Same.
But really early on, I almost jumped ship because it starts off just the nerdiest shit.
Yeah.
Where everything in the script is some kind of reference for people who would be watching this in a room at a horror convention or something. And it just... it's just so annoying. Like, another Jimmy Olsen, Dwight Renfield. Well, but did you know that Dwight was the name of Dwight Fry, who played... But I just... Shut up!
Yeah, that's all very irritating.
Nerds!
Also, I mean, for whatever it's worth, I don't know if this was also a reference for nerds, but Miguel Ferrer plays a character named Rick Dees.
No, see, that's just a good choice. Miguel Ferrer's editor wants him to pursue this Night Flier story, and he doesn't think that there's anything to it.
A tabloid reporter, Jason. He is a tabloid investigative reporter. He's not... This is a world where tabloids don't just take a picture of something and then make up pap about it. This is a world where things are going on and tabloid reporters chase it down and dive in and get out there and do the work.
I mean, that is the world I prefer to live in.
Sure, but it's a fake world.
Or rather, the only investigative reporting they ever do is like uncovering John Edwards' mistress.
Yeah, exactly.
Like they're not chasing down vampire pilots.
Yeah, they're not like, ooh, we might be able to find an airplane, go get it.
Yeah.
Which, for what... So, Miguel Ferrer's character in this movie also cares only about carrying a camera, writing stories, and flying his own tiny airplane. So he's sort of the perfect dude for this job.
I have my own plane.
Yeah.
Really, really early on, there's a line in the film that I wrote down where Miguel Ferrer is arguing with his editor about why he doesn't care about going after this story.
Yeah.
He says, vampires are a dime a dozen in the tabs, which... is another... It's just like that is another strange aspect of this world that this film is positing, because I'm not the most prolific tabloid reader, but I don't think that vampires are always...
Well, I mean, at that time, Bat Boy was in Weekly World News every week, right?
I suppose that's true, yeah.
I don't know that that's a whole slew of vampires, but I do think making up stuff about vampires is not out of the realm of tabloid behavior.
No, certainly not. But just this idea that, like,
That there's just an endless parade.
It's an endless parade of them, that it would be boring or something.
Yeah.
So the tabloid, there's a certain point where the tabloid covers are shown on the wall, like a bunch of them, and at least 2 of them, and probably more, were specific references to other Stephen King movies.
Oh, is that true?
I don't know if you saw those. There was one about like a satanic shopkeeper selling things in a small town, and then there's another one that's like the Gypsy Curse diet. You'll get so thin. Anyway, the Miguel Ferrer, of course, ends up investigating the Night Flier, and it turns out to be more there to it than he thinks. There's also a young woman who is the newest reporter for the tabloid, who is his sort of rival on the story. Kind of. It plays out in different ways than that, but that's the easy way to describe it. She really wants to make a name for herself at this tabloid, and so she's trying to chase the story down. She's the one who thinks it actually has legs before he does, and
she's good at computers.
Yeah. She can use that machine, and he can go out and talk
fly
to
an
the
airplane.
Hicks. You're good with the Hicks.
This is... First of all, this movie is it's a really slimy Kolchak, right?
Yeah.
But it's about 15 minutes into the movie, Miguel Ferrer has established his character as a genuine monster of a human being. He's just despicable and doesn't care about anyone, and he's just really terrible. And I was hoping that the direction the movie was going to go was that the Night Flier was going to be a dude who dressed like a vampire and named himself a stupid vampire name and flew around and murdered people and was like, I'm real scary. And then the movie would end with them having a confrontation and Ferrer just absolutely destroying him because he's just a nerd who's a self-styled horrible person, but Miguel Ferrer is such a genuinely terrible person that he would ruin him, which isn't how it goes. It became clear 25 minutes later that that's not what was happening, but I was really excited about that version of it for a little while.
That would have been a strong version, for sure. That would have been the more... the movie ends on a pretty bleak and cynical note as it is.
Oh, absolutely.
But that would have been like the even more like bleak satire note.
Sure.
For sure.
But I mean, then it turns around, right? So once it's clear that it is some kind of real monster that's out there, and they don't show you him at all until almost the end of the movie. This is the first movie that really kind of bugged me out a little bit, because there was a while in there where it was just him chasing this thing and everyone else dying, and I don't know what about it was working for me, but I was a little, and it could have been that I was watching it at 3 a.m. and that I'm weakened in the spine from having done this for 28 days or whatever, but it was working on me a little bit for a little while there.
No, and
honestly,
movie
right
was
up
genuinely
it's right up through. They have sort of a standoff at the end. Sorry, I'm jumping your synopsis. They have sort of a standoff at the end, and they show the Dracula's like,
your appetite for blood intrigues me. We have a lot in common, you and I. Perhaps you need me, Deez. But there are others who need me as well. Don't fear for your life, Deez. I have no intention of killing you. After all, we are brothers in blood.
The Dracula's like, you want to see my face? I'll show you my face. And he shows it in a shot that's 8 frames long or something, and it was legitimately terrifying. And then it cuts back to Miguel Ferrer, and then it cuts back to the Dracula, and you're like, oh, I can see him really well now. And it kind of lost me then. And then they cut back to him again 3 more times later, and I was like, they cut it out. If it was just that one first shot where his jaw drops open, I would have told everyone to watch this movie.
Oh, yeah. Like, as it is, I'm not above recommending it, but...
No, it's good.
It does. I agree with you that, like, there's this genuine creepiness to it that it kind of bubbles through. And part of it, I think, is that it feels like a weird... because it feels like it could be a TV movie. It feels like a low-budget, production of something that... Some strange choices are being made all over the place in it. I'm not even sure how to necessarily characterize it. It feels cheap, but I don't mean that as an insult.
No, just like it doesn't have a lot of money.
It doesn't have a lot of money, and some of the pacing of scenes is so strange.
Yes.
And I think they're like really strong choices to deal with the fact that they don't have a lot of money.
Yeah.
Where the film just leaves like a little bit too much time in a given shot, or a little bit too much of a pause in between things, where like the pacing feels off, but not off in an incompetent way, off in a way of like, you're having a dream.
It's making you step wrong, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And you're like, it's keeping you off balance.
Yeah.
Like
those dreams
really
where your legs just won't move as fast as you want them to. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it's kind of what it feels like.
Agreed.
And it almost, the cheapness, I mean, this is not the first film that this kind of thing could be said about, but like the cheapness sort of adds to the strange, It makes it more visceral in some way. It makes it more connected. Like if it was more expensive and more lushly produced, you might be more distanced from it. But because it feels like something that you would just come across on television in the middle of the night and not really be sure where it came from or who other than Miguel Ferrer, who these people are, or like what's going on. Like it feels like it should just be a TV movie of the week about like, domestic abuse case that turns into like a 5-minute chase scene in a set that they have access to for an afternoon. But then the fact that it has this real understanding of vampire lore at the core of it from King, and has such control over its willingness to, until that very end where they show the vampire a bunch. Yeah, they have so much restraint, so much self-control, so much restraint over how much you see, what you see, when, how they interact. I was just really impressed with all of that. Yeah. It's the kind of film where they just imbue a lot of scenes with dread without that much happening.
Yeah, I mean, most of this movie is just Miguel Ferrer sitting somewhere or standing somewhere or walking around, not believing in anything, and it's truly frightening.
Yeah. I mean, and a lot of that we can credit to Ferrer.
Sure.
His performance, but the film is definitely giving him the space to do that. It's not working against him. There's a lot of strong choices. So this was, my understanding, this is like an independently produced European film.
Oh, okay.
That then, I'm not sure exactly what they put it. They made it and they put it out on the market, and then I guess what I was reading is that a studio wanted to buy it, but they couldn't put it out in time to satisfy the investors in the film. So like there's some contractual thing where they had to satisfy the investors, so they had to have it out by a certain time, and the studio that bought it wanted to put it out at like Halloween, obviously. Sure. And just the timing was too long for the contract, so they had to put it out on HBO first.
Oh, weird.
Which is where I say that it does sort of a TV movie.
Not made as one, but released as one. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the studio in turn released it in like February after it was on HBO, and nobody saw it.
Of course.
So it just disappeared, and that's why we've never heard of it.
Interesting. There's just a couple of small details, Jason. In the editor's office, the editor of the tabloid, there's 3 paintings hanging on the wall next to his desk of really sexy minotaurs, which I don't know what that means, but I liked it. There's also one of the most brilliant, just brief moments in the movie is sort of when they're revealing that Dwight is a real Dracula. So he's just been he's been going to these tiny airports where there are only a couple of people, and then killing those people, mostly old people. He's a Dracula, and he's sad about it, and he's trying to do the least damage he can. And so he's getting.
Do you think that I didn't exactly get that sense, but we can address that in a minute. But
okay.
Go forward with yours.
So yeah, he just flies from tiny airport to tiny airport, eating whatever people he needs to eat, and leaving everything super clean of blood. And then he gets really frustrated that Miguel Ferrer is chasing him down. This has clearly happened a couple of times. He sends him a couple of warnings. Miguel Ferrer won't back down, so he goes to a regional airport. And even the movie, they're like, why would he go to... That's way too big for him. And when Miguel Ferrer shows up there, he's just brutally slaughtered everyone in the airport. So there's this whole sequence of Miguel Ferrer walking around this airport full of dead people and taking pictures of them, and at some point it's too much for even him, the man who starts the movie demanding a dead baby photo. And then he goes into the restroom and is peeing, and he pees, and then he's washing his hands, and he's standing in front of the thing washing his hands, and in one of the urinals behind him, in the mirror, a stream of blood starts to spray into the urinal, out of nothing, into nothing, and then he turns around and
into a urinal.
Well, into the urinal, yeah. And then he turns around and the Dracula's just peeing into the urinal, but since you can't see him, it's just a stream of blood because that's what he pees, and it's so beautiful.
It was such a good choice, and it was also such a good capper to a running theme in the film, which is that Dwight is super messy.
Yeah.
He's like super leaky and messy. Like there's all of these scenes where he just like drops blood from the sky.
Clean, right? But his plane leaves piles of dirt and stuff's always dripping off of him. When Ferrer goes into his airplane, just everything's covered in gross old blood. Yeah, he's a very leaky creature.
And there's even one weird scene that I couldn't exactly parse in terms of geography and physics, but essentially cinematically what happens is Miguel Ferrer goes to look at a gravestone, and then somehow Dwight's plane flies overhead and drops blood only precisely on the gravestone and Miguel Ferrer's hand.
Yeah.
And then flies away, which is like, again, it didn't seem like it was supposed to be literally happening, except that it then does literally happen.
Yeah.
But I was just like, God, Dwight is just super leaky.
Yeah. Super nice. Oh, but then, so then they have a little standoff, and he shows him himself, and then Dwight frames Miguel Ferrer for the murders of all those people, and you're like, oh, that's why he went to that big airport. Genius. And then he flies off scot-free. It's a really lovely... It's tied up with a little bow.
Yeah, it does really well. Yeah, I don't even have to...
This feels like, Jason, and I don't know anything about anything, but this feels like a short story that was adapted in a way where it was allowed to play out like a short story and just with extra space for you to feel things in it. I don't know that. I would guess...
I don't know it
I would
either,
guess
but
40 pages. I would guess this is a 40-page story. Because it feels, I don't know, I feel like a lot of them feel like either they're cramming too much novel. I mean, it could also be that it's just not a 700-page novel, I guess. But it feels like they're not trying to cram too much in. It also feels like they're not trying to make up a ton of stuff that doesn't totally fit.
Yeah.
There is a sequence I don't get where, so Miguel Ferrer goes, he's like getting ready for his final confrontation, and Julie Entwistle, I don't remember her character's name, the Jimmy Olsen lady.
The rival reporter.
The rival reporter shows up, and they're like, all right, we'll work together. Miguel Ferrer offers to share his byline, and she scoffs at that, like that's not enough. But isn't that all he literally could offer as co-writers, to share the byline?
Well, he could offer submission and like return the byline to her, I guess is the idea of like...
Oh, he's saying we should work together originally, and take co-credit instead of...
Yeah, because like he rejected the story and then she picked it up.
I see.
And it was going to be hers, and then once it seemed like it had meat to it, Miguel Ferrer just like really callously was like, all right, it's my story again now, you go back to your desk.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so anyway, so they work on it for a minute and they find a lead, and then Miguel Ferrer, they're in his room working, and he's like, all right, you go get your stuff, and I'll get ready, and then we'll go together in my plane to this small airport where then all the people get murdered. And she's like, cool, and she goes and gets her stuff, and she comes back to his room, and it's empty, and you're like, oh, he left without her. I kind of saw that coming. But then he jumps up from behind his bed and pushes her into a closet and locks the closet door closed. And I was like, why didn't he just leave without her? What is he accomplishing by pushing her into a closet that he isn't by just leaving?
Well, I guess delaying her, because it's not like she doesn't know where he's going.
Right, but she's going to have to get a cab.
Sure, but like in the movie, she still shows up like
several hours of driving.
Yeah. I mean, she still, even having been locked in the closet, almost gets there in time.
Right, yeah, because it takes you 40 seconds to kick your way out of a closet that's locked with a coat hanger, Jason. If he had just left when she went to go do her stuff, he would have been 4 minutes ahead of her. He would have gained 3 minutes in the day.
I think that's you imposing your real-world experience, maybe with coat hangers, on a film that is definitely positing that I think we're to presume that she's there until, like, a maid lets her out.
That's insane. Any adult human is big enough to get out of a closet with a coat hanger on the knobs.
Sure, I'm just saying. That's how I read the film's intent. I'm just trying to think of what else I wanted to say about this movie, because it was a movie where, as I was watching it, I was like, oh man, this is really a thing.
I feel like this is another one that's like pretty decent all the way through, and I don't know how to be excited enough about it. I feel like there have been 4 this month that have been solid and good, and we just haven't done them justice when we've talked about them.
Agree.
And I think this is going to be another one. I would totally recommend that anyone watch it. I think it's a delight. I don't have much to yell about, though.
Yeah, I mean, cause part of it, too, is that it's such a slow burn.
Yeah.
And it's such a mood piece.
So much of it is just watching Miguel Ferrer walk around.
That, I mean, there's nothing, like, super fun to grab a hold of, except for, him shouting at the beginning.
Yeah.
And some bits here and there. Like, I have some good notes here, like, strong use of dog.
Oh, yeah, that dog is great.
It's like, but all there is, it's just like a really good scene where they use a dog well to make things creepy.
Yes.
Great. Or the long-haired gravedigger at the psychic tombstone moment, Jim.
Cha-ching.
There's a good one for our main accent tally in this.
Oh, yeah, that one dude up in, Bangor or whatever.
Red as a fire engine inside, black as a woodchuck's asshole outside. I had to back that up 3 or 4 times to figure out what it was he was actually saying.
I'm glad you repeated it back to me, because I got red as a fire engine, and I did not get woodchuck's asshole at all.
It took some real work to get there. But so the movie, one of the things I keep trying to describe the tone, and it's almost like in this movie, anytime anybody has to describe the Night Flier's face, they can't do it.
Yeah.
Because it just it baffles their mind, and they can't quite grab a hold of it, which is it's very Lovecraftian. And it's a conceit I'm fond of. It's it's a trick that he's borrowing from a lot of older stuff, but I'm always there for that.
Of course.
But I feel honestly similarly about trying to describe what this film looks like, because I keep being like, it kind of looks like a late night drama, but it kind of looks like a soap opera, but it kind of looks like a movie, but it kind of like
it definitely
really
looks
hard
more
to
like
pin
TV.
Down.
It looks more like TV than it does like cinema.
Yeah. Except for sometimes.
Sometimes.
And I don't know,
once in a while it's doing stuff in a really cinematic way. But mostly it looks like, I don't know.
No, it's really hard to describe. But, and there's scenes where it's really dark and really brutal.
Yes.
And really gory and violent. And then there's other scenes where, when she has to rip up her plane ticket.
Yeah.
And it's like when Miguel Ferrer takes the story. Yeah, and this slow motion, weird musical moment of throwing this confettied plane ticket in the air. It's like, why is this happening right now? I don't know.
The music,
but it's just putting me off kilter.
The music through the whole thing is lightweight sitcom music. And most of the time it's fine, and sometimes it's a little distracting, but it is always weird. There's a lot about this movie that is just, it's coming at you from sort of 4 parallel directions, and you have to dodge around to get it.
Yeah, it's kind of like you got in an elevator in a building you're unfamiliar with, and a guy wearing mom jeans just starts telling you this story while elevator music plays, and you're going all the way up to the 42nd floor.
Yeah.
And at first the story is okay, I'm just talking to this guy, but then by the time you hit the 26th floor, it's this guy might have killed someone.
Yeah.
I might not get out of this elevator alive.
Yeah.
But and then music's still playing, and he's still wearing mom jeans. On floor 32,
it stops, and another guy gets in and starts screaming at the guy who's telling you the story, but the guy who's telling you the story just keeps telling you his story like nothing's happening.
Yeah, and you go to get out on that floor, and for some reason you just can't quite make it.
Yeah.
This is it. Yeah.
The elevator doors shut faster than any elevator doors you've ever seen before.
have one note from the scene in the Wilmington airport with all of the carnage.
Yeah.
Is that there's a part where Miguel Ferrer just straight up slips on a huge pool of blood and falls down.
So good. Jason, I spent 45 minutes trying to look up. I used to hang out with clowns more, and I knew the names for the different kinds of pratfalls. And that one it has a specific name. It's like a 108, or it's a number. If anyone knows, I want you to tell me, because I cannot remember. But it's the funniest pratfall. It's the one where your feet launch out from under you, and you almost do a backflip and then just fall flat on your back. He does one of those, and it's beautifully done.
I also 100% guarantee that Miguel Ferrer knows exactly what pratfall he was doing, and he knows all of them and has the names down. Or had, rest in peace.
Yeah.
Missy Miguel. But just the note I wanted to make is that is just such a way underutilized move in horror movies.
Yes.
The only other one I can remember doing it is a movie I don't really like.
Okay.
But Halloween 2, the original one, the Carpenter needs to get paid for the first movie sequel, if I remember correctly, has a really great moment where like a doofy intern at the hospital walks into a room and slips on a giant puddle of blood and cracks his head open and dies.
Brilliant.
And it's so well done. It's like, that should absolutely happen more.
Yes.
This stuff's wet and slippery. It's getting all over.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to mix your goofball pratfalls with your bloody horror.
I just, in our unified theory of Stephen King only writing about the precise moment that he's in, I was reading this as him being a person who's sort of grappling with being a person who creates art based in horror, right? Because the thing that comes back and gets Miguel Ferrer at the end is that his own interest in this is like objective. He's turned off his own horror and is just allowing this all to be what he deals in. But it feels much more not that Stephen King isn't self-incriminating, but it ends in a way that Stephen King doesn't let things end for himself. But it feels like all the things the tabloid is printing is sort of focusing on what is worst in people. It's sort of focusing on the intrinsic darkness of people. And Stephen King's stuff all focuses on the light within people being what saves them from the darkness of the world. So I don't have a good King read on this one.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that either. I mean, I know the ending is one of the only slight changes from the story. Like, this is a pretty straight adaptation of the story.
Sure.
But the ending, I think in the story, it's left a little bit more ambiguous about, like, what's he going to do now that he's in an airport full of bodies?
Sure.
And the police are coming, and in this one, it is not ambiguous at all.
Yeah.
But even so, I don't think that changes your basic question.
Right. Which
I have to ponder. Yeah, it is one to ponder. The short story was from 1988, so it was pre getting clean, but post trying to get clean.
Okay.
So it's in the midst of that struggle, and I think there is something to. Even if his stories or his novels tend to try to find the sort of human beacon within all of this horror, he still spends so much time mired in the horror.
Yeah.
And so much of it does, like, King novels, I think, in comparison to some other horror writers, are more optimistic, maybe, or more humanistic. Sure. But it's by a matter of degrees, right? Because you have 400 or 500 pages of evil winning, and then maybe you have like 100 to 200 pages explaining how maybe it won't totally win in the end.
Right.
But like it's really dominant. Yeah. So that might be sort of what's happening in here. Oh, here's the question then too: is like, is Stephen King the tabloid reporter, or is he the Night Flier?
Oh, that's true. I guess I was reading him as the writer because that is where he always puts himself.
For sure.
But who is sort of ruining himself through his own connection with the darkness.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Even, the Night Flier, he is like, you've been obsessed with me your whole life. This is all you've ever wanted. This is what you want. Yeah. This is what you're going for, So it does feel like it's sort of him maybe just being sad about the choices he's made.
Which does bring me back to what I guess should probably be my last point, because we're running on time here for sure. But you were saying that like you got this read on the Night Flier as maybe being you like trying to minimize the amount of damage he does in the world or something like that. Yeah. And I didn't get that at all. I got it just as he just is sort of nibbling at what he finds. Like he's wherever he lands, he finds what will be the most effective space for him to go into, whether it's taking over this old couple's life or eating a mechanic at the airport. Like he's I got him as this, especially from that speech at the end. He's really purely like amoral, just death personified that exists in the margins of everybody's life.
Okay. I was seeing, because he's choosing to fly into tiny airports where there will only be a couple of people, and because all of the victims that we see are old folks, and because he seems so sad at the end. And he seems like, the whole time he talks to Miguel Ferrer, it seems like he's like, you are in pursuit of evil, and I am damned to be evil, was sort of the read I got on that. So for me, it felt like it was a thing he's not excited about, and like he's trying to just take what he has to and limit his damage, and he's just trying to also survive alongside everybody.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I can see that read there, and I will eventually rewatch this movie.
Yeah, of course,
because I liked it a lot. Yeah, and I'll be thinking about that as I rewatch it and seeing where I think it fits in. But this is a weird one. This is a weird one. This is and like all the other weird good ones, it's this just totally off the map tiny thing that I would have never ever given a minute's thought if we weren't doing this project. Yeah. So I guess I'm glad, I'm glad we're doing this.
Yeah.
If it results in me finding, the Ted Levine and the Miguel Ferrer starring turns, then seems worth it.
Can't be all bad.
All right. Well, just keep flying those night skies. And we will see you at the next filling station. I don't know.
Hell to the King is a special presentation of the Cinesthesia podcast, produced by Iguana Donald Studios, and distributed by Split Tooth Media. Music by Loyalty Freak. Hell to the King just wants to love you right, baby.
I might not get out of this elevator alive.
Cinesthesia.